and welcome to our third episode of our Tunnel Throat Revisited little video series. Today we'll be talking about tunnels which are not produced with the false chords. So today we'll be looking into the brighter styles of tunnel throats which are normally produced with the Aryepiglottic folds, but we will also talk about other options. And a little disclaimer, if you do not know how to find your Aryepiglottic folds, then please watch one of our videos, or the safest method, which is of course booking a lesson with me, and we will then find it together. How do we approach it? Well, the way that I go forward is I do throat singing on my Aryepiglottic folds instead of my false chord. Now remember that this is with my voice, so this can sound a lot different in someone else's voice. And that's why going to a specialist when we talk about false chords or Aryepiglottic folds are very, very needed. Because some have a brighter voice, some have a darker voice, and that will also translate into these sounds. So in my voice, if I were to do throat singing with my false chords, and if I were to do it with my Aryepiglottic folds, but that is with my voice. And as I said, remember that your voice could be darker or brighter than mine, and then this will translate into these sounds as well, being brighter or darker. And after finding your Aryepiglottic folds, making sure you can do throat singing on them, then we are of course talking about the oral shape again. So we make that U shape as we did in our previous video. And now we want this shape and the Aryepiglottic folds turned on together. You can also hear just from that, right, compared to the false chords. Much brighter in the overall tonality, character, whatever word you want to use. And the next part is of course projecting the sound. However, it comes down to how much pressure you are used to dealing with, because this one is a little harder when it comes to fine-tuning it, because now we're adding quite a bit of pressure, and in some cases people will feel a little bit of a throat burning sensation and other not great feelings, hoarseness and so on. So really be careful if you are trying to do this at home by yourself. And if you feel these sensations, negative sensations, then please seek help, okay? So you can start with more like a rock sound with this specific part turned on, and then slowly build up more and more distortion, okay? So we could try that and see how that sounds. So suddenly we have more of these heavier distortion turned on. Again. Okay. So suddenly we have a fairly bright version of this compared to the false chords. So let's compare them. False chords. Okay. Aryepiglottic folds. So yeah, depending on small details, how you manipulate the sound and so on. But however, the Aryepiglottic folds will generally be way brighter than the false chord version of the tunnel throat. You can, of course, also make darker sounds with the Aryepiglottic folds. However, it will be as if you are removing the lowest part of your voice and kind of only having low mids turned on. I'll show you what I mean. So this is the false folds or false chords in a lower setup and low larynx, etc., for this tunnel throat growly sound. So that's with the false chords, and this would be with the Aryepiglottic folds. So as you can hear, it's not as dark, but of course super gnarly sounding, so it's not that, oh, we cannot use it for lower pitches and so on. Of course we can, but it just doesn't have the same type of lowness in there. We'll try again. And then Aryepiglottic folds. Can use the same vowels on the false chords as well. So there is a difference. It's not humongous, no. However, it is up to you which one that you want for what. However, the Aryepiglottic one is definitely easier to get high up in pitch and yeah, make some more nasty brights with. But are Aryepiglottic folds the only way to reach higher frequencies, higher notes, brighter sound character with tunnel? No, it is not. We can also use fry, even up to whistle fry with this technique, and it creates a very gnarly tone up there. I personally find it easier to do whistle fry with inhales. Other people find it easier to do with exhales. But however, let's dig in. So there you have it. You can also do it with fry. Hybrids is also an option. However, start somewhere that you find easy and without too much effort. And yeah, as I said, if you need help with your tunnel throat, if it may be with fry, Aryepiglottic folds, or the false chords, we are here to help you here at RMS Vocal Institute for your professional voice lessons. See you in the next video.